You're listening to Releasing Trauma, a survivor's podcast. And now here's your host, Tracy Osborne. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are talking about modern day slavery. And, this is something that's gone on for centuries. And you would think in this day and age, we would have been able to put a stop to it, but we haven't. And I'm talking about human trafficking. And, human trafficking is a billion-dollar business, unfortunately. And it's a nightmare for these people who have been abducted and sold into, modern day slavery, sex slavery, whatever. So my guest today is Lena Cebula, and she has, she is a victim or a survivor, I should say, of human trafficking. And she's going to share with us a little bit about her story and how she was able to overcome the challenges and the traumas that she faced and, be able to give hope and encouragement and inspiration to anybody out there who's listening who may have been through something like this. So, Lena, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tracy. It's a pleasure to be here and sharing my story.
Well, this is such a very important topic because, we're literally talking about selling people. And, the slave trade and the sex market is, unfortunately, it's huge.
And another thing to it too, it's well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
So lots of people know about it and it's very well connected. And another thing that I want to break some myth right away, because you said kidnapped, and sometimes we have this misconception that somebody forcing us and like with violence, mm-hmm. because we watch these movies like Taken, although it's an amazing movie, and have a place like this as well. But with my story, I want to share that I went willingly because I had no other choice. That was only the solution for me. And although I did technically got kidnapped because I don't remember how it happened, but it was completely different. That's why I'm sharing those red flags with people. If we would see somebody violently forcing somebody in a car, you right away have a red flag thinking, wow, this is not okay. Something happened. I should call 911 or somebody to support or protect those people. But I always say, look for the people who are submissive or anxious, or they not handling their own documents in a report, because you should think like, why adults don't have their own passport, why they don't speak for themselves. Those things like you have to look for as well.
That's interesting. That's really good to know. And thank you for clearing that up for me. And it did trigger that, I have heard of many stories where, it's a boyfriend who got somebody into it or, something like that. And, do they target women who are vulnerable, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe they're homeless or their home life sucks or, something like that. And they kind of rope them in that way. So tell us a little bit about your story, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, and, and how you were able to break free and overcome.
Absolutely. Well, I was born and raised in Ukraine. My parents struggled in their marriage. They became an alcoholics and lost well-paid jobs. At our home, the government turned off electricity and hot water for outstanding bills, and I was hungry all the time. I was literally starving. So our home was infested with black mold, cockroaches, and mice, and we struggled in poverty trying to survive. And I was raised in a home full of strangers who brought booze and drugs. and with parents who did nothing to protect me. So I've become an easy target for those guys, and I was drugged and raped in the basement of my apartment numerous times. So when I thought things couldn't get any worse, 1 month before my 15th birthday, I woke up with this severe abdominal pain and scared and confused, only to realize I was in labor. I didn't know I was pregnant, and I didn't know who her father was. My baby girl died 3 months later from health complications, and I buried her when I was 15 years old. I suffer with depression, anxiety, and panic attacks, and I use alcohol and drugs to medicate my pain. So then I turned to heroin because it was better to be high than feeling worthless, hopeless, abandoned, and broken. That's why I'm saying addiction is cover up some trauma all the time. That's what I believe. And as the years went by, I just have that awakening because people were dying around me or who went to jail. So desperate and despair, I needed to change. I was really tired of that lifestyle. Then I met this lady. Honestly, she brought me to her house and offered me fancy coffee and sweets. And I was so impressed. And it felt wonderful and safe because she really cared. I was a street junkie and somebody really paid attention to me. And I thought it was the opportunity to get a better life because she offered me a job. No really specific, just a job. And I was eager to agree because she was really nice and kind to me. So I agreed really without much thought. And her team went to work. So I literally, they brought me in the salon. They did my hair and makeup. And at some point, I was questioning what kind of job I'm going to be doing, that I have to look so nice. But still, I just been compliant and agreed to whatever they asked me to do. And still on heavy drugs. I vaguely remember airport. And how I went through customs, I never know because I still was on heroin. And I woke up one morning hearing Muslim call to prayer, Allahu Akbar, read out. I was confused and terrified because I knew I'm in a foreign country. And it took me a while to realize that she actually sold me into human trafficking.
Wow. I can't even imagine. I mean, these are the things that nightmares are absolutely made of. And, Stephen King couldn't hold a candle to what happens in this industry and to these poor women. How were you able to escape or get out?
Well, it took some time. First of all, for me, yeah, although it was a crazy situation in general, but for me, it was a upgrade because now I had a bodyguard. Nobody was raping me or beating me to death. And I actually was able to save some money even. But honestly, this is like 1 in a million experience because whatever I know and whatever I read in, and the girls who came with me, they all gone missing, died, or never come back. So when somebody called me a survivor, I thought it was kind of silly because I assume that survivor is the person who went through war or something very traumatic. But then I saw the definition and say that if you overcome when lots of people died, and I'm like, yeah, I saw so many people was dying around me. So now I kind of own that word as well. But what's amazing happened in a brothel that one of my bodyguards actually shared the gospel with me. And it's if you guys not familiar, it's the Bible and good news of God's love. So it was first time somebody telling me that I'm loved. And it was amazing because I knew that my body had a price tag. I knew that my life actually has no worth, no value. So it's really given me this amazing hope. And then when my grandfather had a heart attack, my bodyguard actually took me to Jerusalem to ask God for a favor. And I was so overwhelmed with the sense of shame. And I knew that I don't deserve a favor, but God answered my prayer and miraculously healed my grandfather. So that kind of gave me that boost to try to get out and have a better life and be normal. Excuse me. And I know it's very interesting for all of us. Normal is so different, but I just knew that my normal, it's something different than what it is now. So that's what I was striving. I didn't have these plans or dreams or goals for a very long time, but I just knew that it's horrible and I want to change. So 2 years later, I actually was able to leave this situation. And guys, you have to know, in most cases, you never leave this kind of situation alive unless you've been rescued by the grace of God. I don't know any other way to explain to you that they actually set me free after 2 years and allowed me to go home. So I have little bit money, but my other bodyguard, who was like a brother to me, cheated me out of all of my possession, and my trustworthy aunt stole and spent all my money. So I came back zero again, and I didn't know what to do. I literally went and found the drug dealer in my city because I was so broken and so depressed. I felt so much betrayal. And it's very interesting because I still was able to trust those two people. They were precious to me, and that's what they did to me. So I ended up on drugs again for next almost like 3 years. I was on heroin again. And I was right hand of the number one drug dealer in my city. But it was really dangerous because I knew that I'm gonna end up dead of overdose because I have no limit of the amount of drugs that I was using, or I would be put in jail because of this, or even been killed or like murdered, So I decided to quit by myself, which is unheard of too. Nobody leave drugs, unlimited amount of drugs, but I just felt it in my heart that there is something more for me. And I do believe that was God pulling me out. So I decided to leave my city. I went through withdrawals. And that's another thing. Lots of people don't quit heroin because withdrawals so hard that your body shut down and people die from it. So I did quit heroin twice by myself, and it was awful. So I didn't know what to do because there's like no hopes, no dreams from people like me. But I just find the people and sold myself again into sex trade because my body was a commodity and it gave me an opportunity. So this time they actually brought me to Canada. So in Canada, a few months later, I realized that I can start a new life and have an opportunity to escape. So I escaped the sex trafficking and slavery and lived in shelter and learned the English from level 0. And it's funny because I was posting my blog. That's why I got a little busy today. But I was posting my blog and saying that I really like to write. But I learned English from 0. Now I am blogger and I'm speaker and a published author. And it's really amazing. And my book called Miraculous, My Journey from Hell to Heaven. And that's what I believe it is.
Wow, that is amazing. So once you were able to, get out of it and you cleaned up, that doesn't heal you right away. You're still left broken and feeling, like you're worthless and all of that. What did you do to change that, to, realize that you do have worth, you do have value, and that you are important?
Yes, absolutely. It took time. I probably now clean almost for 20 years. And I'm still dealing with my PTSD. I'm still dealing with this stuff. But it's really interesting that it just coming one after another. So it's never, I do believe, no addiction mindset, no anything like that. It's never gonna be over. I just have to be like consciously aware of what I'm doing and how I replace my addiction, because it's never, that space never gonna be empty. And I think when I quit and really was clean and I had my baby, so I did it for her. She was my why, to be clean. I wanted to be a good wife and a mother, but my past tormented me, and I suffer with postpartum depression that it was not diagnosed, and I had no drugs. I literally, for the first time, it hit me so hard to understand that that's how painful actually mental health problems are. And I do believe that because in some crazy way, I medicated myself through life, but this time I was clean. So I have to learn different ways to cope with my depression. So food was number one for me. And it took me probably 15 years to just get the awareness that that's what I'm doing. I just honestly, like if you would be walking like with the stroller and doing heroin, everybody would see it and say, wow, this is not okay. But for some reason, me eating nonstop until I want to throw up and getting crazy weight, nobody even thought about it. Even my doctor say, oh, it's just baby weight, oh, it's just this, oh, it's just that. So it's all, so I thought this was acceptable and norm, and that's what helped me to cope and survive to the point that just recently, maybe 3 years ago, through the counseling and therapy, of course, like you need one person to get out is you, and you need like army of people to get you through on another side.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, counseling and therapy. And just recently I find out through my health coach, just couple like 3 years ago, that that's how I cope with my problem with eating, and it's not okay. And it's been 3 years. I'm getting replacing that as well. So when I'm stressed or I go bike, and honestly, guys, it sounds easy, but took me like 3 years to get into this routine, and I'm still not perfect. But I learned fasting. So now when I get really panic, I rather fast. I literally remove food. And it took me a while to learn that as well, because I thought I'm gonna die without food because I starved for half of my life. So for me, it's huge, like trauma not to eat on purpose. So I learned that, and I saw huge benefits, and it's broke that bad relationship with food, because the food is fuel and food is beautiful, but the way I treated food, it was my drugs. It was like it took huge like mindset shifts to actually love me in a different way. So now I bike, I fast, sometimes I walk. I don't do anything like crazy, but I always I think like awareness, it's number one. I know that something happening and I feel it and I'm getting stressed or scared. So I step back and say, you know what, today I'm fasting. I just remove the food because it triggers me, and then I cannot stop. And then I do mindlessly, and then I'm sick. Sleep, eat, exercise. It's so easy to say, but it's important. If your physical body fall apart, your mind gonna fall apart. I do love bubble bath with Epsom salt and lavender. This is my escape as well too. Every time I have like panic mode, I need to remove myself from situation and actually do the self-care. And then my mind doesn't go into this abandoned scare, like something like from the past. So you have to break them one after another. Another thing that I didn't even know just recently, one of my friends from Fight for Freedom, and we have time to talk about this amazing organization. they do outreach street ministries. And she invited me to go and help the homeless and people in need there. And it freaked me out. I never thought about it, but for the last 20 years, I actually have fear to walk alone in a street that I don't know in the dark. But it's still a trauma.
I don't blame you. I didn't go through, anything near what you did. And I am afraid to walk alone in the street in the dark. I think a lot of that is just us as women. We have to be fearful in this day and age. We have to be so fearful.
Yeah. And it's very interesting. Actually, what I want to mention about human trafficking, we think it's women and girls, but actually boys and men can get trapped too.
Yes.
And when you were talking, you're absolutely right. When you were talking about the family members, and that's what they, like friends and family or some romantic relationship, that's what they pray. They pray on being lonely or some kind of need. They're actually looking for this stuff, for vulnerabilities, and you can be like from broken family like me, or you can have actually good family, but have still like this mental challenges, like from COVID. Look, we feel lonely. We need to be loved. We need to be seen. We need to be heard. Those needs are as heavy as the physical needs that I was looking for, being clean, being fed, being taken care of,
Right.
So it can be various different ways that we can get into this trap.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lena, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me, telling us a little bit about your story. I'm so glad that you were able to get out and that you've been clean and you're doing so well. I'm so glad. Listeners, if you or somebody that you know or you suspect is caught up in human trafficking, definitely call the human trafficking hotline. I'm going to list it in the show notes, but I'm going to give it to you here. It's 888-373-7888. That's here in the United States, 888-373-7888. And they will be able to give you information on next steps to take. So, Lena, again, thank you so much for coming on. I will have all of Lena's contact information, the link to her book, everything in the show notes. So head over to releasingtraumapodcast.com, pull up Lena's episode, and all of her information will be there if you want to reach out and talk to her or grab your copy of her book. So
thank you so much for having me. That was
absolutely, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. We'll talk to you in the next show. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure you hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a show. Be sure to check us out on our new socials on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.